Okay, so Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant are teaming up on a new HBO limited series called The Undoing, but the pair were almost co-stars back in 1999. Nicole says she auditioned for the role of Anna in the film Notting Hill. Can you imagine? So during a conversation with Hugh for Marie Claire, Nicole revealed why she thinks the role went to Julia Roberts instead. Watch.
It was not a big role, and I really wanted the role that Julia Roberts played in Notting Hill. Yeah, I did, but I wasn't well known enough, and I wasn't talented enough. But yeah, so finally our paths aligned.
Yeah, I think all in due time, right? Erica, was there ever a gig that you were up for? And I know we've had this discussion before on the show, but you look back on it and you go, okay, I understand why I wasn't supposed to be that radio girl at that. Okay, you're shaking your head. Please fill us in.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I tell the story about MTV, and I was like on the third round of auditions, and I wanted this so badly. But when I completely bombed this audition and the casting director told me that I just wasn't ready, when I saw who the people were and how they actually performed in front of the camera, I understood I wasn't ready, and I understood that I should never have been considered for that position. But then, you know, I took my time and paid my dues, and then I booked this 10 years later.
Yeah.
So, you know, just be patient.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating. I love when they go behind the scenes. I would love to do a show like Almost Had It or a podcast.
Yes.
Something like that, because I have stories, and I'm nobody, up to Leonardo DiCaprio on movies that he's even passed on.
Right.
And what would that movie have been like with Leonardo DiCaprio or without him? Mm-hmm. So I love these stories. Nicole Kidman saying, at her point in her career, she's thinking kind of like, I could get behind that. Like, I wasn't ready. Julia Roberts was a better person. I've had auditions where I'm like, at the time, that's perfect for me. And then 5 years later, you're like, what would have been terrible for that?
Or you realize how terrible you were. That's me. Like, literally, I remember auditioning for certain things and being like, oh my God, I'm perfect for this. I have to get this. And then fast forward a few years later, like 10 years later, after you finally honed your craft, you understand how green means inexperienced, how green you were and terrible you were, me, in the beginning.
But so what a great life self-motivation that you realize how bad you were back then and how much you've grown, and that you wouldn't have been ready for that part anyway.
Exactly.
That doesn't necessarily just stick with Hollywood. It's anything in life.
Exactly.
Right?
You got what is that? There's a book like 10,000 Hours, I believe it's called. Read that book. It tells you why it's so important to like get to that experience level, and then you're an expert, so to speak.